Hello, good afternoon and welcome to New Forest Morphs. Tonight we've got Mandy joining us, so thank you Mandy for coming in and being our camera lady today. And just what we're going to cover today is we've got clutch 16 of Shoutout yesterday, as you knew from yesterday's video. And what we thought we'd do is we'll just have a good inspection of our babies. We've got 8 hatchlings, they all came perfect. They're in a really docile state, so hopefully they'll be easy to handle. And we'll have a look at them and see what we've got. I think tomorrow Jad will sex them all, but we're going to put them into their individual rubs. And it's been 8 days before they shed out from when they were hatched. And I've got everything all set to go. I've checked the temperatures on all their rubs, made sure they've got fresh water and bedding, so I think we're good to go on that one. The other thing we're going to cover today is we're going to cover some feedback on yesterday's video. We talked about sociability and also the respecting of the light and the intensity of light, and there's 3 or 4 really good comments that have come back, and I think Hamlin came back with some ideas and perhaps share some of his experiences with us, and also I think Rob and Quinton both come up with some feedback, so thank you everyone for your feedback. I think it was an interesting topic and it does make us really think carefully about what we're doing. I think Quentin was saying that he agrees that bright lights aren't necessarily good for our animals. So what I've done today is, although we've got the full studio lights on for filming, I very carefully, when I was cleaning, I was using subdued light and gently increasing the intensity of light. And the idea of doing that is it allows the snakes to get acclimatized to the light, so they're not going from dark to light. And I think when you study different people's collections, have you noticed, Mandy, that we use see-through rubs, which is quite common in the UK but not so common in the US or other parts of the world. And I think it's got pros and cons. The pros are that your snakes are getting used to a natural cycle of light, so when the light comes in they're not suddenly spooked by instant lights going on. When you take out a rub or take out a snake that's actually in a closed rub, they are going to have more of a shock because they're going from darkness to immediate light, whereas this is a much more gentle way of waking them up. And so I've allowed them to get a little bit acclimatized to the extra lighting, so there shouldn't be a massive shock. I can understand it for those that are keeping them in darkness and solitude, it would be a shock, but I think if you've gone from different degrees of light, then there will be a much more gentle approach to how we bring light to our animals. So the other thing that we were talking about, and I think Quentin was saying that he checked the temperature on his hand and he said it was 34 degrees centigrade. I checked mine this morning and mine's actually at 30 to 31. And I think Rob was saying that in Malaysia he gets tropical heat, therefore on hot days his palms are nearly 36. So it's interesting how when we listen to each other we need to take and apply the things that apply to us locally. And I think what I was going to suggest we do is listen to each other but then actually dial into our local conditions. So if we're living in the tropics, then I think in the tropics, I think most of the snake keepers don't spend a lot of time handling their snakes because they've got such hot palms. Whereas in the UK, I think we're perfect really, because we've got 28 to 30 degree palms. So when we're touching our snakes, they're not going to get too hot. They're going to be quite nice to them. So I think we're lucky in the UK that we could probably get away with handling our snakes more so than in the tropics. And I think if Rob's been there for quite a long time and is used to not handling his snakes, there's a reason for that. It's because of his local climate as well. So I think we're probably going to be a lot safer in the UK handling our snakes a bit more. And I think we need to respect and appreciate each other's local conditions. The other thing that Rob was saying is when he gets a whole bunch of people into his facility, he's noticed that the temperature goes up. So you can see what temperatures he's dealing with out there. Whereas over here, we can actually keep our ambient temperatures much lower. And I think what Quinton was saying is that he measured his ambient temperature and he says he keeps his room about 27 degrees Celsius. So I can understand what he's saying. He's saying that there's probably less danger in our snakes overheating if our ambient room temperature can be controlled better. Hamlin came up with some really good ideas, because he's given us 6 different examples of his snakes of what they've done when it comes to handling and feeding. And he said that one snake is an extremely sociable snake and will spend plenty of time with him, and he's got to learn to not touch him as much, because he's saying you were putting him back in his rub, he'd want to be out all day. And so I think you do get snakes that want to socialise and they do want to play. And that will lead us on to the topic of today, which is going to be talking about, is enrichment and mental stimulation good for our snakes, or do you think that snakes get bored if they spend all their time in one space? And that's the discussion for today. We'll come back to that in a second, but I want to just focus on Hamlin's analysis because I think it's very useful. He said that he had one snake that he handled quite a lot, and it became a picky feeder. So that's interesting. So in that particular case, overhandling can cause feeding issues. Then he also said he rescued a snake, and he says that snake is very stiff and very, he calls the word flinchy. And I've got one in our collection that I go to pick her up and she flinches and she tenses up and she gets really stressed, and you can tell that she doesn't want to be handled. And I think that's body language that we've got to read and leave our snakes to be happy in their own setting. So I think every snake, I believe, has its own personality and its own preferences. Some want social, some don't. And I think it's learning when to handle, when not to handle. Reading the body language is very important. Now he also mentioned his subadult males, they aren't bothered by handling at all. So all his males that are subadult, he can handle as long as he likes, and they're not absolutely bothered. They can go as long as they like, and they're not fed up with it at all. And then the other interesting thing is that 3 of his smaller juveniles, they're okay for short periods of handling, but he wouldn't want to hold them for much longer than that, because he's saying that they're still probably gaining confidence, and I guess you can gently increase the handling as they get more confident. And you've got to know when the snake is stressed, you put them back in their homes, and normally it's they're panting, they're breathing, they're hissing. They'll give you and let you know if they're uncomfortable or they want to flee from you. If they want to flee from you, or they're panting, or they're hissing at you, or they're going to tag you, then they let you know, put me back please, and obviously read that body language. So different personalities, different needs. Hamlin reckons their instincts are always the same, but they still have different personalities. And he said that when he leaves his snakes alone, they do feed better. So it's interesting. Hamlin is giving us another angle on his experiences, which I think kind of sits nicely with me because I'm experiencing similar behaviour. And I think many of us will see that. And I think the key is maybe not to have one general rule for the whole collection, is be willing and flexible to adjust your handling, the amount the snakes can spend outside and playing and all these other things. I think you've got to make a judgment call on the ground in your collection and what works well for your snakes and what works well for you. Right, now the other thing we were going to look at is today we had 3 perfect sheds from our males, and they were, actually there was 4. So we've got Thor, who's up at the top there on that rub. We've got our Banana Super Pastel Orange Dream. Thor is our VPI Xantic Pied. And also we had Skip, who is our Gravel 100% Het for Clown. And we also had Wizzy, who's our Yellow Belly Pied. Now isn't it interesting that all the boys shed together and they're all lined up in the same area of our rub system here, and tomorrow is breeding day. It's going to be pairing day tomorrow. So I thought, God, these boys, they couldn't have synced their sheds any better. They've obviously all eaten, they've all digested their food, and they've decided to shed ready for breeding. So Jared and I should have some fun tomorrow when we start pairing up, because 3 or 4 of the boys have given us perfect sheds, absolutely perfect, which tells me my humidity is perfect here, and we're running at about 55 at the moment, and it's just about right for them. And we had one girl that gave us a perfect shed, which was Calico Girl Pringle. So what I thought I'd do is, rather than throw away the sheds, I've kept the boys' sheds, and I'm going to play a little trick with them tomorrow. I'm going to actually put some of the boys' sheds in some of our pairings to see if it will stimulate some locks. So that would be an interesting exercise for tomorrow. So the topic for today is, do our snakes need enrichment time? Have you got any thoughts on that, Mandy?
I don't know.
It's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I know Emily, if Emily was in here, she'd probably say, yes, Dad, they do. But it depends on what snake you've got. Now, my feeling is that I've always, for the last 12 months, even though I am becoming more of a breeder, I am also equally a keeper, and I'm a hobbyist. So I'm kind of torn between the two in a way, because the breeding side of me says don't mess with them, but the caring psychological side of me and loving side of me says if I sat all day long in a rub for 24 hours without exploring my territory, I get bored stiff. I'll go, So you've got to look at their mental welfare. Now, I know in the wild they spend an awful lot of time in tight spaces, ready to pounce on their prey, and they often wait for their prey to come to them. They move in and out of different spaces to achieve that. But the studies teach us that the snakes, they do move at night. And I've been looking at some of the studies, and so what I'm thinking here is that our snakes are used to exercising at night. They're used to moving, they're used to going out, and they're used to exploring under the cover of night. Now here they get their food brought to them, they get very little exercise, and they don't need to work for the hunting. And I think that we've got to then perhaps consider, this is just one idea, is that when a snake does want to come out and play with us, that I think it's okay if all conditions are perfect for playing. In other words, they've digested their food, your hands aren't hot, they're ready to play, you can read it, and you can spend time playing with them. Now, they can use our bodies to move around and get exercise and play, and I often do that, only for a few minutes, but it's just enough to give them some enrichment time. But my bigger question is, do you think that we should consider enlarging that enrichment and giving our snakes more time to be stimulated? I actually have a theory, and I guess I use it, Maddie and I, when we're raising our children. If we don't give our children activities to do, what happens to kids normally? If you leave a child to their own devices, what can happen to children's behaviour?
Oh, they get bored and start being naughty.
They get bored and start being naughty. So I'm wondering whether some of these snakes could get bored and, depressed, and maybe that could add to their stress. So there's an interesting one to throw into the mix. Does not enriching our snakes cause stress? Let me get your views on that. And would you consider, there are one or two breeders out there that have built various play areas. I was toying with the idea of building a play area in here for some of our snakes to have some fun. Obviously you've got to make sure it's safe play. I know people build ladders and they build ropes. I mean, a ball python spends the majority of its time on the ground and in burrows, so they can obviously climb, but there's a lot of snakes that do climb and do like the stimulus of climbing. And it's interesting, when I speak to quite a few breeders and keepers, they've had mixed feelings about this. Some are pro enrichment, some think leave alone. But let me get your views on that, guys, and I'll be very interested to see whether you think enrichment time is a valuable way of reducing stress, or whether you think leaving alone is better. And again, it might be that there's a judgment call that we've got to make that depends on the snake. Okay, that's perfect. So, moving away from intellectual stimulation, we're now going to actually get out the Purple Pasion clutch and have a look at them out of shed. So if you stay here, Mandy, I'll bring the snakes to here, and let's have a little look at them. They're a happy little family. There you go, Mandy, you can zoom in on them. What a lovely collection of hatchlings, aren't they beautiful? So we've got 3 Purple Passions. We've got, I think, we can see at least 3 Mojaves. I think we've got a couple of Phantoms, and we've got 1 wild looking. And the one that's wild, well, all of them 100% het for ultra male. So what do you think, Mandy?
Yeah, great.
Do you like them? They're all good sizes. They all look content and happy. I'm almost reluctant to move them. They feel so happy, don't they? Like a little... Shall I leave them till tomorrow before we set? Maybe Jad and I can sex them tomorrow and we can actually do a proper review of them. But I thought we should just have a little look and see how they will look there. And I think they're beautiful, and you can see how peaceful they are. They're not being feisty, they're not attacking us. I've got this theory that I believe that the majority of our hatchlings, if they're left gently, without being overly disturbed or disrupted, they've got a very gentle, calm nature. And then as soon as the smell of food kicks in and they're hungry, their instincts kick in. So, beautiful, aren't they, Mandy? Aren't they beautiful? Right, we'll slip those back, and I think Jared and I will have a bit more fun with them tomorrow, but I hope you enjoyed seeing that little clutch. and once we sex them we'll let everyone know what's available, and that will be the last clutch of this season for us. And we'll slip those back, and perfect. Okay, so just to finish the video, what I wanted to do was I wanted to do a shout out, Mandy, and the shout out I'm going to do is for Sal G at House of Gaia Pythons, and he's based in Canada and he's got some amazing projects. So if you come over with me, Mandy, we'll give him a shout out. He's got 830 subscribers and this is his YouTube channel. So, I think he's laid it out beautifully. What do you think, man? Is it looking good? If I switch the lights off, there we go. Is that better? His motto is "Bred by Design." He's a really nice guy, and I've connected with him over the last 3 to 4 months and his community. And he makes really good. What I like about his video channel is that he's got excellent camera work, and you can sit and look at the beautiful way he presents his animals really well. You can see he spends a lot of time developing nice thumbnails, and he's into, just recently he just picked up a Desert Ghost combo which looks beautiful here, pastel Desert Ghost, and then he's got a champagne het clown clutch, he's got his pied clutch, so he's into his pieds. This one looks crazy, look at the white on his the white touch around his mouth, you see that? Absolutely beautiful. So let's have a little look at an example of one of his videos. Might get a few adverts, but we can... Okay, there's a little example of just the photography. Can you see this is his new pickup here, which I believe is a Desert Ghost. Look how deep the colours are, look how black and contrast. I think he's chosen a wonderful specimen, and I believe it's got some other genes in it as well, and I'm really excited for him because I think as soon as this boy is up to size, it's going to be a wonderful project to look forward to. Now I'll just show you a little bit later, see if I can get the... There we go. Here we go, let me just see if we can get him up. Here we go.
Get some more people onto my channel, and I'm going to be trying to do that from now on. Whenever I produce something or I do a new pickup, I'm going to try to put it on YouTube first and foremost, and then I'll introduce it onto Instagram. So make sure you're following us on Instagram as well though, so I'll put the link down here. So go check us out on there. I have tons of pictures, I post daily stuff, so definitely check us out there. The other thing we're going to be going over is my second pied clutch finally fully shed out, so I'm excited to show you guys those. We hit 2 really nice snakes in there, so I'm super excited to show you those. If you watch my other videos, you already kind of saw what we hit, but after they shed, they look so much better, obviously, so super excited to show you those. But anyways, without further ado, let's jump into it. Alright guys, so to start us off here, let's have a nice simple...
So there we go. Please go and give him some love and some following. He's got 2,000 people on his Instagram. He's based in Canada. He's a lovely guy. His standards are very high. His gene pool is amazing. I think he's one to watch for the future, and I'm certainly going to build relationships with him, and maybe we can support one another. We're both at similar stages of our YouTube channels. We're both getting close to that magical 1,000, and if you could share with your friends and family and build these channels, I think it will really help us to be able to get out in the communities and share that network of knowledge that we can learn and be inspired by each other. So I hope you're having a lovely weekend. Thank you, Mandy, for being our camera lady. It is a short one today. It's a wonderful day for us to enjoy with the family, and I hope that everyone else has a wonderful weekend to finish. So thanks for watching, and we shall see you hopefully with Jared back on Monday. Bye bye for now.